So I'm just going to check to see that we are, which it goes pretty quick. I think we are because this thing
Around the
goes.
world
What's
through
that?
space and time.
I get lost in like which device, which cursor to use. I don't know if you go between devices like that. And I'm like, oh, this cursor doesn't use work that. I got to use my finger or whatever. Um, or like on my phone. I just want to make sure that we're live before I start saying stuff.
Yeah.
And it says that it is, but I don't see us on there quite yet. Maybe there's just a lag time. And there we are. We're there.
Sweet.
Yeah. I think we worked that. I got to use my finger or whatever.
There you
Well, that's
go.
crazy. Yeah.
Feedback loop. There's two of
Yeah.
you in this reality.
I know. So we'll go ahead and get started.
Okay.
It's so funny because it says that there's one person watching, and I think it's
It's
me.
you.
Yeah. Yeah. Isn't that funny? So hi everybody. It's Shannon from I Evolve TV and Chris who has joined us for another episode of Exploring the Creative Cosmos with Christopher Michael Moores. And we're going
Glad
to
to be
talk.
back.
I'm sorry, what, Chris?
Glad to be back.
Yeah, episode 2, second Sunday.
Hopefully this sequel will be as good as the original. You never know when you come into sequels. Sometimes they're hot and sometimes they're not.
what? What? Um, so
Like
we were going to talk.
Rocky 2. Is Rocky 2 better than Rocky 1? Some people say maybe.
No, it's not. Rocky 4 is my favorite,
Or
actually.
Back to the Future 2 as opposed to Back to the Future 1.
I don't remember that one as much as Star Wars and Rockies.
Yeah.
To be honest, to be
So
quite honest with you.
we'll make the sequel great this time.
Okay, that sounds awesome. Yeah, I mean, you kind of get in your flow too. That's different.
Yeah, we got some of the background information covered last time, so we can just get to the nitty gritty today.
And we have new streaming software or
Yeah,
a platform, whatever
congratulations.
it is.
It's nice. It's definitely an upgrade.
Yeah, it was a quick study. I was like, "Hey, Chris, what do you think about this?" And you're like, "Oh yeah, that's cool. That looks good. That looks better. Oh
Shoot
yeah,
it
that's way
everywhere in the
better."
world. Yeah.
Well, as long as it makes things easier, it's very Zoom was good. It's just I don't think people realize like the back end stuff that happens, or at least I always thought it was me because I just didn't know what I was doing. But this seems to be a little bit more
Geared,
easier.
yeah, I think it's geared towards what you're trying to do. So
Yeah. So hopefully it'll work a little bit easier for us, or for me actually. So yeah, we're gonna talk about today. We're gonna talk about one of your books, right? Like your first book. You want to talk about
yeah,
that one?
really my first big book, Pearly Gates Press. Yeah, that'd be a good place to start.
Yeah, I was really when you first showed it to me this past summer, um, I was really curious why you or what made you think of Pearly Gates and what was the significance of that title. That was a big curiosity for me.
Yeah, that's a good question. Some of these things happen kind of organically, but a lot of the time when I wrote this book, there's kind of a couple years when I was first really pouring out freely, where the quality of the artwork has a little different flair to it. So
Sure.
a lot of my songs that came from that time, because if you go through life, and if you're not expressing your heart fully, and then you finally get to a point of where you connect to the heart, and then you open the heart and you let it come, it comes out, just pours out like a dam that is overflowing because it has been pent up for so long. That's kind of what begins the search. We have this calling, and that calling is from the heart, and that which is meant to be expressed that hasn't been expressed yet. And so when you finally begin to express it, it just comes out in a giant tidal wave. And that time is a very special time. Like I said, like half of my output practically is from that time. I mean, I dedicated my life to just composing and writing during those years.
Okay.
So I had a little more time, but I, and as far as Pearly Gates Press is concerned, a lot of what I was feeling in that I considered heavenly or angelic or just these higher vibrations of the heart that gives rise to this imagery. And Pearly Gates Press, I initially wrote the book. I wrote the book as website updates initially. So
Okay.
I, as I was talking about my website, Creative Cosmos, on the last show, when I finally found the idea, I was writing something daily to put on the cover of the website. Like I would write a whole article about something related to consciousness or some kind of uh, channeling of a vision that I was seeing as I was going through my own awakening process. And part of why I found radio and art was because as in self-reflection, I realized that was what was coming forth naturally for me as I was meditating, that I had to I spontaneously broke into expressions when I would be talking to people. And so then I wanted to put it in its rightful place. So I started writing every day and sending it out. And I had a whole community of spiritual websites at the time. This is about 2004, 2005, where a bunch of us were kind of doing the same work, much like you have going on now with this and some of the people you've drawn into the collective of what you've been working on. It has a lot of the similar feeling.
Yeah, it's been very interesting to see just who you need when you need them. They just kind of show up, right?
Yeah,
They
I
just
mean,
do.
some of what you put out the intention, and that kind of
Right.
echoed across the universe and is bringing those that match up with that frequency to this group effort to uh, awaken or enliven the discussion. I like how you and I have talked about it. It's a discussion. We're not saying
Right.
anything is absolutely so. We're
That's
banting
right.
about ideas, we're exploring concepts, we're seeing how far the mind and our imagination can go with it. And we're not trying to lay down any
That's right. Yeah.
specificity. We're just kind of prompting the discussion.
That's right. It's just having the discussion. It's being open to other people's ideas and how they might think of things differently than you do, and that's okay. That's totally okay. At the end of the day, we're all here to share this human experience together and grow and learn and support one another because that's what we're here to do.
Yeah, absolutely. So I love that question. Why did I call it Pearly Gates Press? Because I was putting that those articles out every day, and I was trying to, now I'm kind of remembering and it's coming back to me what was in my mind
Okay.
at the time. There's so much bad news out there, so much news that gets us down. It was almost like, imagine if you had a newspaper thrown at your doorstep every day from the Pearly Gates Press, the
Uh huh.
heavenly news, the news of good things, of people doing good work and kindness and love and pet videos and all the things that make us smile. Like, tried to provide an alternative, because really a lot of things are how you look at them. And I was having reminding myself of that last night. As you know, I've been trying to wake my website back up and really get it
Oh
cooking,
gosh.
and I've been having technical issues and be easy to get down on it. But I was also like, well, you know what, I learned a lot, and
Mhm.
I have some really good ideas to make it even better than I was thinking it would be, based on the challenges that presented themselves. And so at first I was feeling frustrated, but a little bit later on in the evening, I was like, it's all part of the process. I kind of left it sitting there for a while unattended to. So naturally, it's going to take some time, and there's going to be some bugs, and you got to just hang in there with it and work your way through it. Try not to let things get you down, and look at it from the
Right.
positive. So you could look at it as like, oh, everything's going wrong, or you could look at it as, hey, I'm learning a lot, and I will take it to a better place.
Yeah, I hope so. I hope that thing comes online because I'm struggling too with my own stuff. But it's tough, man. Like just
Yeah.
learning all of these, platforms and applications all at the same time, and and just trying to make it work is really tough. And if the people that are supposed to know what they're doing, like you, and the people that host it, and things aren't working right, it makes it really hard for the person that's learning.
Yeah. Well,
So
it is a challenge, and it is part of doing this work is getting the means set up to express it. So just got to hang in there and work our way through it and keep it moving.
right. So basically, it was kind of like when you were referencing the pearly gates, you're referencing like the words or the downloads or the information that you were receiving from heaven, essentially.
Yeah, you could
Okay.
say that.
Yeah, it was just kind of a twist on words, kind of.
Right. Like you imagine the newspaper guy heading out the front pearly gates every day and throwing it out to the world.
Okay.
Here's some good news for a change.
I like it. I like it a lot. That makes sense. Um, so should I share the that screen?
Sure. Go for
Okay.
it. You can
Um,
look at it a little bit.
yeah. I'm not sure what page we ended up. We were kind of scrolling through. Yeah, I'll start on the front page. So there we go. I'm gonna do that.
There you go.
How fancy schmancy is that? Woohoo! I'm gonna
PDF.
get rid of that. There we go. Yeah, so that's what it looks like. I wonder, can I control it from here, or do I have to go? I think I have to go the other page to the other window. Excuse me, to control it like this.
Okay, cool.
So you published this in 2007. So we're talking like 15 years ago that you were started writing it, right?
Yeah, that's about right.
And you
2004,
self-published.
2005. Yep, I did all the work myself.
Okay. And
Definitely
it's been
takes
a
time, and it's a different thing to do the editing than it is to do the writing.
right.
Initially I would just kind of pour it out. So the part of the writing process, and this goes back to what we were talking about last week with inspiration, and you got to take that idea when you get it. So I just kind of poured it out, then I'd go back over it with an editing eye, and then you have to go back over it with a publishing eye and clean it
Sure.
all up and get the format all right and mess with all. And sometimes us creative people don't necessarily love to do all that kind of work, but you got to
Mhm.
hang in there, like we were always saying about the website. And if you want to get it out, that's part of it. One of my favorite scientists, Buckminster Fuller, would always, I call it Bucky's last step. He would say it doesn't do any good unless you implement it or finish it up and distribute it or get it in its final form. If it's 3/4 of the way done, it's not going to have the synergy or the kind of tune into the universe process of being able to bring people to it that need to see it. So you gotta do all the work to get it where it needs to be.
Yeah. So then you did some of the artwork too. Some of that was downloaded, or a lot of, or I guess all of it downloaded or inspired through the same sources, right?
Yep, during the
I'm
same
showing
time
some
I
of that.
was the drawings were done at the same time as the writing, so it matches up really well. I would just I would draw quite a bit and let it come through the way I wanted to come through. Some of them were good, some of them weren't, but some you kind of purge some of the psychology. Some of it is like a therapeutical thing, but then you open up space for the ideas to come through. If you can get some of
Right.
the junk out, you can make room for the ideas to flow out, and then you get some good ones too, like that.
So this is the first piece of your art in your book.
Yep.
Um, what is? I mean, it looks like a sea creature to me.
Standing at the threshold of duality.
So that do you think that's or to you that's you or that's a person?
Yeah, to some extent, I guess it's always yourself in the artwork. You can
Sure.
be writing about something else, but some quality of yourself comes through. So yeah, I guess you could say that's me.
Hmm. Are you familiar with light codes?
Not specifically, no.
Okay. So like, um, and people think of them in many different ways, or star codes or that sort of thing. But like Reiki symbols would be light codes.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of this art is archetypal or loaded with. It's kind of like hieroglyphics almost.
Sure.
You know,
Which, yeah,
it gives
exactly.
you something to hook into to a broader concept. Like I could talk
Hmm.
about this. The line is the oneness. The two diamonds are duality, and here we are, humanity, at the crossroads of oneness and duality. I think I've heard a few of your other shows. You've discussed the idea of multiple dimensions happening
Hmm.
at once. We're here
Hmm.
in the physical, and then we can also perceive beyond that at the same time. And so this is kind of at the crossroads where we're one and we're facing the duality. It's almost like through the brain too. You got the left and right hemispheres of the brain,
Hmm.
and the observer sees through those two window the duality and can observe it, but is back observing it from the state of oneness. So that's the kind of thing all packed into that little sketcheroonie there.
A little sketcheroonie. Well, I could just keep going with it, honestly, because if you start talking the brain, the hemispheres, and like some people will just focus on one side of the hemisphere, not the other, but we do exist with both of them. And if we don't cross over and become whole brained, we're only one sided, and we
Right.
can just keep going.
Yeah,
That's
it's
okay.
definitely something to be aware of in the way we process things. There's, the left hemisphere is the more organizing of the two, with the mathematical, they say, and the right hemisphere is the creative, the abstract. And when you bring the two together, that's one great thing about music is it fuses the two sides of the brain quite nicely and strengthens
Right.
that connection so they can cross fertilize each other. And sometimes that left hemisphere wants to take over. That's the more concrete thinking. And
Well, in the left hemisphere can only, they have very short neurons in the left hemisphere.
hmm,
Um, and it can only sense two, or it really only knows two emotions, or really one, um, uh, pain or fear and anger or something, like just those very, um, it's also the masculine. I mean, not to like, it's not to put anybody down, because we all have both in each of us. So it's the it's that very short bursts of energy. It's that protective side of you. There's so much that can go into that. So when you talk about something that's symbolic, that is what I reference as being a light code, like Reiki symbols, that many of us, if we're familiar with energy healing, and that means a lot. So that little symbol with all those little lines mean an
yeah,
awful lot. So that's um, very insightful, Chris. Very, very cool.
thank you.
You're welcome.
No, I didn't think all that consciously when I drew that. We're kind of
No,
unpacking.
no, you got to unpack that, right? So, of course, that's why it came from the pearly gates.
Yeah, exactly.
So, okay. So, I feel like we could just keep talking on that. So we'll just move
Yeah, we gotta move on. There's
on.
plenty more to talk about. That was like page one. We're not even on page one yet.
Right. Volume one. Here we go. And we go, I missed the dedication page. But you dedicated to the women in your family. I missed that
Yeah.
page, didn't I?
I don't know.
Maybe
Just
not. Maybe not.
might
I'm kind
be.
of lost now because I have I have it like enlarged so that it's nice and big and I'm not missing things. So, volume 1. This is before you started using your middle name to just differentiate you from another Christopher Moores out
Yeah.
there.
Well, just to make it more specific, yeah, there's so many words out there as individual of a name as you can get, the better for the wild world of the web.
Yeah, there's even Christopher M will still find you, right?
Yeah, I became friends with the other Christopher Moores on Facebook.
Oh, really?
I always tell him he's probably a pretty cool dude.
There's a Shannon Smith on QVC,
Oh, well,
or there
you
was. I don't know if that
you're
still
into
even exists. Oh, there we are. Dedicated to the women in your family. Do you want to talk about that or no?
Well, they have been the ones that supported me in my life the most, and they were the closest to my heart when I
Aw,
was looking for the dedication to this book. So that's why they're there.
that's lovely.
They are in my heart.
Yeah, that's very sweet, Chris. All right, so here's the deep dive. Here we go.
Yeah.
Hold on, strap yourself in, get that 5-point harness,
Here we go.
get your
All
helmet. uh, Solar System Secrets is told by the sun with a U.
Yep. Yep. That's what I meant. The sun in the sky.
Right.
So, kind of the idea is that, well, many of us have read a whole pile of metaphysical books, spiritual books. And if you've done it for a lot of years, a lot of people go through the same literature. And I wanted to kind of provide something extravagant. I let my imagination just run wild. I wanted to write something that for those that have read all the books and seen it all and heard it all before,
Mm-hmm.
this would be new or something exciting to think about or forge new mental territory. That's something I describe sometimes, mental territory. Again, it's not something that is necessarily so and absolute. It's opening the mind to the possibilities so that when you hear certain things that seem unusual, you might be able to consider it as a possibility
Mm-hmm.
and just plain fun.
Sure. So now that like this drawing here, I see this less as a light code. I mean, it kind of is almost depicting the last illustration that you with the two stars alongside it, but it's almost like a depiction of how energy flows.
Yeah, I would say that's right. You could, the key thing is the openness in the center of the individual in meditation.
Mm-hmm.
That's a visual representation of what I was describing of being open and everything pouring in and pouring through. That is the hollow bamboo that we were talking about
Mm-hmm.
last show. The openness that allows the energy of the beyond to flow through.
Yeah, I really like that picture. And I like the symbolism just in the simplicity too. There's a lot of artistry in simplicity. And if you've ever done like a silhouette drawing, like or like something that's monochromatic in silhouette, it's really hard because you can say so much with so little.
Very true. Very true.
Yeah. So here we are, solar system secrets. As told by the sun, the pyramid builders first interacted with humanity's third generation on the planet Mars.
Yeah.
So how did this all start coming to you, Chris?
Well, if you get to the point of oneness in yourself, that which is before the manifestation of things, then you should be able to connect to any other thing that has been manifested. So I would try to tune in my energy like what would the sun say if the sun actually spoke? So I try to focus on the sun, and I would imagine and write as if I was the sun itself or the other
Okay.
solar system in kind of the tail of the solar system as seen from the perspective of the planets and stars, a much broader context, to kind of, because we don't really know too much. We only have history back to 3000 BC that we call, reliable, and some sources go back maybe to 10,000 BC, maybe the Ice Age. But it always fascinates me what happened before, what was going on before that, what happened on Earth. I mean, I know there's many secrets that would amaze us about life on Earth before recorded history. We think
Hmm.
it's these watered down little ideas, but I like, that's why I like watching Star Trek. It kind of imagines some of these scenarios, what, visitors to the planets and what that might look like, and life on a different scale. So that's what these are about, are tuning into stars and planets and writing on their behalf as if they were speaking.
Hmm. The artificial moons, Demos and Phobos.
Demos and Phobos, yeah.
Demos, Phobos. Can you fill us in more without having to read the whole chapter?
Well, that's one that, again, it's read like poetry, or that's why I call it mystical fiction. I'm not trying to claim absolutes on this stuff.
No,
I frankly can't even remember half of what's in this book. So you have
you're
to
making it up as you go along.
well, take me through it. But yeah, to some
No.
extent.
Well, you're
But
just recalling what you've packed away. So it's your
I've
book.
created a lot ever since then. So there's been a lot of water down the Ganges since I wrote it. But I like doing the flyover more than like trying to pick a little bit
Sure,
apart and trying to explain it.
I get it. So, and to go like if you were to pull out my thesis from 2011, I would be like, I know there's like something like 11 attributes that are really important for a program for post high school transition. But like, and I could maybe name five. You know what I mean? Like,
I mean, in
let me read
short,
it to
in
you.
short, I think this is about the idea that maybe we lived on Mars first before we came to Earth, and Mars used to be more like the Earth, and they seeded Earth from Mars, and that might be not be our place of origin, but I like to explore that idea that we came from Mars and that we may be going to Venus as the planets get slowly farther out in orbit. Perhaps Venus will look more like Earth in many, many years.
Well,
And
you're not the only one that has speculated that or thought that or has gotten downloads in regards to that, you know, or has, like you said, it's not necessarily verbatim because how would we know? You've only gotten clues or indications of maybe a past life memory. You can think about it like that, or a multiple dimensional knowing. How would you know? You're just interpreting the information that's coming in as you can receive it, and you wrote it down.
yeah, something like that.
Hmm.
Why don't
Thank
we?
you for doing that.
Yeah, it was a labor of love and not easy.
Yeah, because I think other people do that too, and um, not very many. I think there's a lot more people that could do that, and sometimes people that are artistically inclined, or more readily, because everybody's artistically inclined, but more readily artistically inclined will put it somewhere, um, and and depict that stuff through their art more.
Which I
Um,
think is a very important part about what we're doing. On one hand, we're talking about what I did or what you've done, but we're kind of demonstrating here's what you do with this, find an outlet, find some way to speak about it or express yourself because the world needs it. The world needs you, the listener, whoever's out here right now. You're very important and part of the bigger picture, and you have something valuable for all of us. So
mhm,
hopefully you can find an outlet to speak or to express yourself because we all need it.
mhm. Yeah, sometimes this gems of information come to individuals before it comes to the rest of us, right? So there's a lot of people that are maybe waking up to more of maybe uh, what you got in 2005. More people are aware of this, have woken up to this in the last 15 years. Like you were saying, your radio show was running strong there for a long time, and now it's been reinvigorated in a slightly different platform.
Yeah, it's really fascinating to see how things kind of cycle back around and move in those directions. It's really awesome.
Yeah. So, so I think placing representative DNA samples in transportable containers. I like how this was really getting sorted out. I can tell that. I remember when I read this the first time, I'm like, he's really starting to sort out a whole bunch of information in here. Like it was just coming in so hot, you
Yeah,
know?
my writing is kind of like jazz, where I'm just trying to keep up with it as it's coming through.
Yeah, it was coming in really fast. So, so you go on, like these numbers are so 65 million, about 65 million BC, 65, like I can't even conceptualize that. Like I, that's,
Well,
I,
the Earth was here, stuff was probably happening.
sure,
You never know.
sure. That's thunder lizards. Did you talk about that in the previous chapter and I just missed it?
No,
We
they're
breezed
each
past it.
different. They're each different little vignettes. They all have, it isn't. It's kind of like pieces of the story that are scattered that you got to kind of let your mind put together, but
Okay.
they're not necessarily related one to the other.
I like it. I like it. Yeah,
I think this one explores the idea of dinosaurs, some of them evolving in a little different way, and
I
it's
like that you do pull in the information about we are part of the planet, but so are other systems part of ours.
yeah, I think it's quite possible.
Yeah, for sure. I don't to think that we're the only sentient being in how many I mean, I don't think there's an actual number of galaxies or planets or is pretty egotistical. I mean, think of it just
Yeah.
on a mathematical
It reminds
scale.
me of a hilarious thing that happened to me. I was walking downtown Champaign, and it just so happened there was a news guy that was out there with a camera, and he approached me and he asked me the question if I believed that there was life out there because they were doing a little segment on it for some reason, and he hit the right person because I was like, heck yeah, there are all kinds of things out there. You never know what's out there, just like what you were saying. And when they played it on the show, on the news, they had my name, Chris Moore's Believer. I got a kick out of that. I was like,
That's hilarious.
Believer. Okay.
Oh,
Well,
oh my gosh. Next time you run into that guy, make sure you have a tinfoil hat.
yeah, right.
Well, I mean, I think that's been the depiction in the past, like, oh my gosh. But but if you really use logic, like how could you possibly think that
Yeah, it takes a certain amount of courage to say that you think about these things, or it's not always welcome.
well it's it's unknown. It's it's fear. And what I mean, we only fear what we don't understand. So,
Yeah, that
well,
gives
not
rise.
only, but
Yeah.
I mean, one of the big things we fear is what we don't understand.
Yeah, truly. I mean, one thing about connecting with the soul in your true nature is you have to be able to create space or make room for it to manifest here in the world. And sometimes the external, whether it comes from your relationships or your work environment or your home environment or whatever it is, these things from the outside impress upon us. Or it could even be educational beliefs that you picked up over time, or but all these things that can create a cage in our mind. Or and when we connect to the self or the soul and we want to start living that way, we have to accommodate those new realities. That's one really tricky part about this, is you have to be able to make your world in the image of the soul and be able to find the ways to communicate, in the new truth of the self that you've discovered, and be strong in it, because sometimes the external doesn't always love that you're finding that freedom or that new space. You have to be have courage and be able to hold that space and give the creativity and inspiration room to come in.
I don't know that I can expand upon that. Yeah, you do. You're right.
Well, and one of the ways you can do that is you start, like in my creative space, I have the things around me that inspire me and give me strength. Now that I've connected to it, and know what it is, and there's been some time, I have created an environment that fosters that strength of creativity and vision, where I have statuary that inspires me, or my instruments, or records and books and dream catchers, and all the kinds of things that create an environment to foster creativity.
Right. So I went back. I tried not to make it visually distracting while you were laying that down. You were flowing there for a moment. So I just went back to the index because all of these secrets are, like you were saying, are little vignettes that you can put together as little kind of little gems that you can put down and kind of plug into where they make sense as you were describing. Does that is am I describing that correctly?
Yeah, that's
Okay.
certainly one way to look at it.
Um, uh, I think that the 12 angelic scrolls of Atman rings a bell to me. Isn't there some ancient sacred text like that talks about Atman?
Yeah, the Atman comes up here and
Atman.
there. Well, that's just how I've always said it. I don't know what exactly the perfect way to say it.
That's okay. This is
Yeah,
like saying Yogananda.
yeah, something like that. But the Atman to me is the oneness, kind of like where you've talked about the fifth dimension on your shows before. That's kind of having this sense of yourself as soul, and being one with that connects you to the greater universe, but you still have some idea of who you are as an individual. You still have, you're not the ego, but you still have a sense of yourself. It's kind of the realized version of yourself that is one with the Atman. But
So that is somehow linked to that's part of is that part of the Buddhist and in Hindu? Well, I'm saying Hindu, but that's not correct. Like part of the Bhagavad Gita, or
I
no?
think I think it comes from
The
Hindu.
Brahman.
Hindu
teachings?
tradition. I got it from Osho. Osho talked about the Atman sometime.
Okay. And I think that if I'm remembering correctly, there's some parallels to that in the original teachings of the Bible that are drawn into the name Adam,
Yeah.
correct?
Well, I kind of see if there's a parallel in Christianity, it would be God the Father. Or
Sure.
also, I think now that I'm recalling a little bit more about it, that we're talking like the soul of the Son.
Hmm.
So when I wrote as the Son, the like, I mean, all these things that are alive, if we've got a soul and we've got consciousness, it seems only to make sense that the soul, sun, or the earth has some kind of consciousness. It might not be the way we think of it, but it's alive. There's a living force there. And the life that comes into to the earth comes from the sun. The energy, the sun is the life giver, and there's reasons why many cultures have worshiped the sun in these different ways. And Atman, in one sense, and probably the way I use it, is to give I mean, you're trying to connect to it by giving it a persona almost, because it's a way for us to relate. Again,
Right.
it's an exploration of ideas. It's not trying to say that. That's why I call it mystical fiction. It's a wonder to behold, not an absolute to believe in.
Right. So because I haven't gotten that far into into this book, when you wrote the second, the third, the fourth, the fifth, are those like teachings based on those energy centers as well?
No, those don't
Okay.
correlate to the energy centers. Those just are a chronology of
Okay.
writings over time, really.
Okay.
But I think in those I took up like a biblical tone, or as if it was a spiritual text, and tried to form something in that manner.
That makes sense. There's so many, synchronicities or parallels. There's so many that you can draw upon, which is why, I mean, things over time have always, spiderwebbed and grown off into all different directions, right? So that's very
Yeah.
cool, Chris.
Mhm.
I like it. So I feel like we're not doing all this stuff justice because there's so much information in all of these areas, but hopefully people will gain some interest and either find you on um, Amazon or reach out to you and ask you questions, because this will go on YouTube, it'll go on BitChute, it'll go on your creativecosmos.org. It'll
Yes,
go eventually. It'll
certainly.
go on my website.
Certainly, it can spur many a conversation. Maybe if you want to hit some more of the art, that was pretty good. That kind of sums
Yeah,
up on.
that's fun. And maybe save the heavily transmissions for another time because they're just kind of numbered. They're not. We'd have to go into them. And I like the stuff on Katrina's. So we did
Yeah,
cover this
that gives
picture.
you a good idea of the time when I was writing it.
Oh, okay. But I think I asked you about that name in particular
Yeah,
because
that
I
was
know somebody that is very very gifted in transmissions and has that same name, which I thought was like, oh my god.
yeah, that was around the time of Hurricane Katrina, and
Right.
I was
But this
writing.
is a 400-page book. I mean, this isn't a lightweight thing. It's huge. So,
No, it was an anchor. I'll probably never write anything quite like that again. The second book is the closest thing I'll ever write to this, the Ruminations of the Universe, but I don't think I could ever write like this again.
well, it seems like it came fast and furious, right? It was just you weren't going to be able to rein it in.
No, part of that time and part of that stage of opening up when it all came out. So
So,
I'm glad I was able to catch what I was able to catch out of it.
yeah. You said you wanted me to hit some art. Is it in between the chapters?
Yeah, yeah, it's
Okay.
You might have to
I'll
scroll
just turn this off so it's not so distracting, and I'll
there.
find it. Um, if you want to just kind of flow as I go.
Okay. Well, one of the things I had down to mention today to build upon what we talked about last time was meditation as a practice. That you don't just meditate once, and there's not just one way to meditate, but it's an ongoing process that you have to practice. When we learn a musical instrument, we practice every day or almost every day, and we get slowly better at it and gain the skills over time. And meditation is the same way. It's not an instant gratification kind of a thing. It's something you have to build on over time and work on and stick with. It's like working out too. Like when you're trying to get physically fit, you have to keep at it or you start sliding backwards. And meditation is the same. Hopefully not. Meditation is the same way, that you have to keep it up, keep at it, and keep practicing. It's a work in progress. There's no right way to do it. You just have to do it and keep working on it. I lost you for a second there.
No, I actually just, no, you're fine. You're good. So I did find your other, the next illustration.
Okay.
This one's really cool. I was kind of just looking at it for myself for a moment, but I'll share it.
Okay. So you asked what the Atman was, and that's my visual representation of the Atman.
Okay. Um, Yeah, I was just kind of studying it for a moment.
Yeah, what does it make
I
you think of?
Oh, well, only because we've had like a couple different conversations about using your third eye, um, not just to like when you kind of start to look inside yourself and you um, become more equipped with your abilities to self-reflect using um, your third eye, which is really your prefrontal cortex, your ability to self-govern, and there's actual physical structures, your pineal gland, there are all those things. It's your God, your God source. I mean, it's there's an actual gene connected to it. It's what they poke when they actually test you for COVID. So I mean, it's actually a thing. It's what gets calcified with fluoride and numerous other elements that exist either chemically from a lab or in minute amounts in our actual earth. But I could go on and on. But anyway, so when we get more advanced, you and I have talked about this, that and more in tune with these things, we can use it in more I don't know, sophisticated ways. And giving it wings is one way to do
Yeah,
that.
I mean, I would concur that for me it was related to third eye as well, and coming back at it the other way, I've talked about, and this is how I wrote these things. I would send my third eye out, I would send my vision out, I would look out and try to connect to these things and write down what I saw without judging what was coming through. And I guess that's a icon of how I conceived of what was happening, a
Mm-hmm.
way to represent or link to that phenomenon of tuning your vision into other things.
Well, Sean the shaman. I gave him. Well, maybe other people call him that. I don't know. But I have a friend named Sean that was on the podcast last night. So whenever I would talk about them to like my family or whatever, I'd have to differentiate who was who. So I would say Sean the shaman or Sean, my friend, who's a female. So it's different. And he was actually talking about doing this, and you can use it. And if anybody again, with energy medicine, if you do, or energy healing, if you do Reiki, it's, and you do distance Reiki, it's kind of the same thing. It's just using, um, it's, I guess it's the same but different, I guess, but same, I guess, help me out.
Yeah, just kind of using your energy to reach out and connect and
Hmm.
get input through.
Yeah, I don't think you're trying to see as much when you use Reiki energy or life force energy. You're not trying to see as much. You're using more energy. You're sending energy. It's more of a feel. But with with the third eye, you're also feeling, but you're trying to create an illustration, so you're getting more message, I guess, more message back. But
Yeah, it's
I guess
almost
they can be the same.
similar, different way to
Yeah.
receive information. Yeah.
I get, that's what I took from that picture. Is that's the first thing I saw, was like, oh yeah, that's totally third eye. You're sending that out.
Yeah.
But I didn't want to necessarily give that to somebody else that might see it a different way,
Right.
unless.
I mean, that's something too that it can strike different people in different ways. But yeah,
Mhm.
there's definitely a third eye component to that. Like I said, some of these things I created so long ago, it takes me a minute to even recall what I was doing myself. So, but that's right. I remember that was part of it.
But and you grow and you change.
Because a lot of my artwork, I put eyes on, kind of thinking that same thing of that trees have consciousness or animals have consciousness or there's things just out of sight that have consciousness, or there's a lot of intelligence in this universe and not all of it is evident on the surface.
That's true. So I'll shut this off, and or turn that little screen off, so you can't, as I scroll through, so it's not so obvious, if you kind of wanted to.
All right. Sure. Well, how about for the last few minutes
Yeah.
we revisit the dreamland a little bit, and
Okay.
I wanted to talk about a technique people can try to use to interact with their dreams. Last show, we were talking about trying to remember your dreams or using dreams as a means of inspiration creatively. But you can
Hmm.
also interact with your dreams. The more you pay attention to your dreams, the more they pay attention to you. And once you kind of part of interpreting your dreams is you're creating a language in which the universe can interact with you in the dream space. The more you codify your personal archetypes, the more the universe can interact with you in that way. And the more you do this, the connection becomes stronger, and you can use the dream itself as an oracle. You can try to, if you're having a difficulty in your life, what should I do with this big decision? You can keep it in mind and give it to the dream. And if you continually do that, you have to be patient because it doesn't always happen. It's not going to happen necessarily the first night. It might, could happen the first night, could happen the fifth night, but you have to kind of hold the concept that you're seeking input on in your intention and give it to the dream. And eventually, the dream space will give you a dream that will give you insight into what you're trying to figure out.
Those are great recommendations. And it kind of bleeds into some of the recommendations for meditation as well. So those are all helpful.
Yeah, the meditation and the dreamland are definitely related. The first thing you come to in your meditation is you start seeing some of the things in the astral realm. And oftentimes we get very enamored with that because it's quite wondrous. And we have to remember that even that is outside of our center as well, outside of the oneness. So we have to be calm and centered in the midst of all things on all levels in order to see them and remain uncontrolled by the phenomenon.
I think that's helpful for people that are trying to especially now when we're going through a really tough time. People are really struggling. That maybe they'll or have tried different avenues, and because all the answers are inside all of us. And finding that support through communities is just another way for us to reach out to one another and be supportive. And if we can do that for ourselves, that's just one more supportive thing, right?
Yeah, sometimes we seek outside for the help and get constantly disappointed when the
Yeah,
help we were looking for was within us all along.
absolutely. Yep. We are absolutely um, living libraries through each in on a cellular level. We are just opening those things up and being able to understand them is kind of the trick.
Very true. Very true.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
well, I'd like to thank everybody for taking this journey with us today and just
Yeah.
spend a little bit of time on my book and just kind of
Yeah.
wetting the whistle a little bit. There's a lot there, and I will eventually put them up on PDFs on my site up for
Okay.
free perusal, but right now you can buy them on Amazon. Oh, that's the Holy Spirit right there. That's my version of the Holy Spirit.
He's cute. He's sparkly.
Yeah, it's quite an entity, quite a joyous, loving entity.
I like it. I like it a lot.
Mhm.
I like it a lot. That's awesome, Chris. So, did you want to talk at all about your holiday album that has come out? Did you want to? Is that up on iTunes and stuff yet?
Yeah, all that's on iTunes. I got a couple Christmas tunes that I have that I'm promoting right now. Santa Claus, He's a Friend of Mine, which is hopefully the Christmas hit. So I had a lot of fun putting that one together. And then Merry Christmas Fantasy, I'm calling the B side. So you can find that on Cosmology of Christopher Morris is the band name. And the album name is Gifts and Giggles. You can type that in and you'll find it on any of your favorite platforms. So there, it's out now. Santa Claus, He's a Friend of Mine, and Merry Christmas Fantasy. Thanks for mentioning that.
Hey, no problem. Are you going to be? I know that every once in a while you like to. Well, I know that you go up home. We're both from Alpena, so and you like to go home for Christmas. Are you going to be doing any like little holiday gigs up there this year?
I don't know with the current environment, it might be a little bit tough, but we'll have to see. Usually I play in church up there when I'm home for the holidays. I
Okay.
usually play trumpet in the church, but I'm not sure if it's going to be open or not. But I'll have my instruments with me and I'll be ready if I have the good opportunity.
Okay. Awesome. We had our Santa parade here uh, last Friday, or this past Friday. It was very, very short.
Yeah, was it a good Santa?
I didn't even realize it was actually happening
Oh, you missed Santa.
because, I mean, everything's so weird this year. And I'm like, oh, I guess we're having a parade. Missed it.
Yeah.
It goes right past my house. So, it like ends at my house. I'm like, well, there was a parade. It's over.
Well, we got to
Well,
do
there it was.
a little bit of fun, but
Yeah. So, what a bummer. But hopefully, things will be getting back to normal. Not a new one, but well, maybe a new one, but a new improved, right? Not
we'll be a little older, a little wiser, and
yeah,
see what we can do.
a little bit um Yeah. Maybe a little bit more like higher frequency.
Seems like it. Seems like it.
I hope so. Yeah. So, well, you have a great Sunday afternoon, Chris. Thank you for a lovely episode too.
Yeah. Thank you very much. And thank you, everyone who joined us along the way. And we'll be watching this later on. It was my
Sure.
pleasure. A lot of fun.
Yes. Have a great afternoon. Bye.